today we're joined by our second featured guest, Aditya Kulkarni, talking about ZecWallet. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the project, ZecWallet has a suite of products that help users send, receive, and store Zcash, and particularly shielded Zcash support is something that ZecWallet has that really stands apart. So Aditya, I believe you're on the call. Let me know.
Yeah. Hi, can you
Yeah.
hear me? And
Oh, great. Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you for joining. I know we have talked back and forth about today and what you were going to share about. I think a good place to start is just talking a little bit about how you got into Zcash and how the ZecWallet project got started.
yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So thank you for this opportunity. This is really fun. Yeah, I'm going to talk about ZecWallet today. Just how I got started, what I've learned along the way, sort of some of the challenges, and the next steps of building shielded wallets. Right. So I actually got started with ZecWallet in late 2018. So I was following Zcash since the start of the project, and it was kind of fun. But at one point, I got really sort of frustrated typing out commands on the command line, because that was the only way you could send and receive Zcash at the time, especially shielded transactions. And so I thought, hey, it would be cool to build a UI that would let me sort of automate this process. And by the way, like at that point in time, like although I was an experienced programmer, I had never done consumer products at all. Like all my work was on the enterprise side. I had never built a UI. I had never written C++ code, never used a UI framework, nothing. And so the project, it was not a project, it was like something I was doing for myself. And the first version of ZecWallet actually was this really simple UI where you typed out your from address, your to address, your amount, and it generated a command line that you copy pasted onto the terminal. So that was it. Like that was my goal. That was what I wanted to build. And I sort of built this thing, and I just put it on GitHub because, where else would I put it, right? And the interesting thing that happened after that was that people just organically found it and started using it. And at some point, people started filing feature requests on GitHub saying that, hey, I would like to, the first one was like, I would like to have the wallet submitted directly, or can I show a list of transactions? And basically, like, it turned out that people wanted a fully featured wallet. And so that's how I got started building it. Of course, like I had to, I literally remember I Googled like macOS native UI framework, and Qt was the first result that popped up, and I was like, okay, let me build it in Qt. And so like that's how I got started, and I started adding these features slowly one by one. And around, I think, November of 2018, somebody in the community sort of reached out to me and pinged me and saying that, hey, are you aware of the Zcash Foundation? And they're sort of looking for somebody to build these wallets. Of course, I had like no idea the Zcash Foundation even existed at that point. And I was like, sure. So I sort of reached out to Josh, who was sort of, at that point, who was like the only person, who was like the one-person team at Zcash Foundation. And we got talking, and it turned out like Zcash Foundation was really interested in sort of supporting this work, and helping me sort of bootstrap and build like a fully featured wallet. And that's how ZecWallet actually came about, after discussion with me and Josh, and Zcash Foundation agreed to sort of support this work. And that's when I sort of made my first grant request. I wasn't even aware that this grants program existed up until that point. And then, that's how we got started building ZecWallet. Of course, at the time, it was just a UI front end to the Zcash node, right, the full node. And I started building it, and it kind of got quite popular. Like I remember, like the first version had like over some 700 downloads, like the first one that I published in like early 2019, and that was shocking to me. I was like, wow, so many people are using it. That's kind of cool. And so, it became fun. The first sort of challenging thing that happened after that was that I started getting a lot of support requests Of course, like since I'd never done consumer software before, like I have no idea how to deal with this, and so I was just like answering questions on Twitter and stuff like that, and it became quite clear that you needed to be sort of a technical expert to use ZecWallet in the state that it was at the time, because it needed you to know how to run Zcash, how to run the command line, how to debug. Of course, the big problem was that you needed to download the full blockchain, which was like 20 plus GB at the time. And so a lot of people were having trouble using it. And at that point, like I learned that the Zcash company, as it was known at the time, the electric coin company now, was building a light client protocol. And I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. And I started sort of working with them and started learning more about this light client protocol. And it seemed really fascinating. And the thing that really got me was that it was a really interesting sort of practical cryptographic application that let you preserve almost everything that was cool about Zcash, your privacy, anonymity, the fully shielded transactions that were happening, without having to download the blockchain. And like that was like really cool. And so I started learning about it, and then I decided to sort of pivot into building this light client, right, which would be much more user friendly and much more easy to use, fully shielded transactions. Of course, Zcash wallets have existed for a long time, but they were all transparent only. And my goal became to build a easy to use Zcash wallet that supported fully shielded transactions. And that was a little bit different from what I was doing at that up until that point, which is just building a front end. Like now I decided to build like the full wallet, the full SDK. And I started working with the ECC. And of course, the Zcash Foundation was super awesome. Like they sort of supported me here as well. And I started building it. And it was quite interesting because a lot of the I learned a lot of new things at that point, which was like sort of non-obvious to me, non-obvious to me at the start. Like for example, it didn't occur to me that a lot of, like I was going to build shielded wallets, which was the kind of my goal. But after sort of talking to a few people who were using it, like it became clear to me that actually transparent address support was really important. And the reason for that was that most people's ZEC was either on an exchange or in their hardware wallets, which in both of these only support transparent addresses, right? So even if a user wanted to do fully shielded transactions, the first two transactions that they did were always transparent. The first transaction was withdraw from the exchange to their wallet to a transparent address, or from their hardware wallet to their own transparent address. And so ZecWallet would need to support transparent addresses, at least incoming. And the second transaction that they always did was to shield it, which is to send it from their own transparent address to their own Z address. And so the light client protocol that the ECC was developing at the time didn't have the support. The second thing I learned was that memos were actually really important to people.
Super, yeah.
Until that time, it didn't really it wasn't obvious to me, but memos was actually, people were using Zcash as sort of a private communication channel, which was really interesting. They were like, people were actually sending me bug reports via shielded memos to my address, which was pretty cool. And I also received like feature requests and a lot, like I was diagnosing bugs and stuff with users over shielded memos. And I realized it was really cool because, you didn't need an account to send shielded memos. You didn't need to disclose who you were. You could, keep yourself completely anonymous and still have a conversation. And I realized a lot of people were using it that way. And so these two became like really important for me to build into the light client, which didn't exist at the time, which is transparent address support and full memo support, both incoming and outgoing. And so I reached out to the ECC team, the wallet team, and I gotta say, like, they were like super awesome.
Yeah, I
Helping
love
me
that team.
expand. Yeah, like they're the best. Like expand. They're really helpful in helping me expand the protocol to support these two sort of big features, right? So transparent address support and memo support. And I started working with them, and I started, building out code. I added a bunch of features into Light Wallet D. I added a bunch of features into like the core SDK, Libra Zcash. And I gotta say, I was actually really intimidated at first because, Zcash, the ECC is full of these like cryptographers and really smart people, and I was, just like a nobody building this wallet, and like I started modifying code deep into like the protocol, and they were like super. I was surprised like how helpful they were, and they accepted a lot of my upstream patches that I submitted into both like the Light Wallet D, which was like the Light client server, and into like Libra Zcash, which is like the core Zcash library, to add support for these two features. And we got started and started building on that, and a couple of months later we shipped it, and actually the Light client became really, really popular. Like, of course, like one problem with being a wallet developer in this space is that ZecWallet has almost, well, not almost, ZecWallet has no telemetry, in that like it does no logging, it doesn't report any numbers back. So like I have no idea how many people are using it actively, what they're doing with it, as it should be, of course, right? Like it's a privacy wallet. The only
Very
sort
on
of
brand.
exactly, right. And so the only sort of numbers I was getting was how many people downloaded it from my website. And the first release of ZecWallet was downloaded like 2,000 times, and it was really like fascinating to me that there's so many people out there sort of actively using it. And then we followed up with the companion app, which is an Android app that lets you sort of remote control your ZecWallet from your phone. That also, and I learned a lot building this app as well, because the most obvious thing to me for ZecWallet to be really useful was that it has to be super simple to use. And so the big challenge people had up until that point was, how do you configure your mobile app? Like you need to open firewalls and ports, and you need to do port forwarding, and you need to do all these, like this was really hard, and people were just giving up before doing it. And so ZecWallet ended up inventing this like ZecWallet wormhole protocol, which is like a zero configuration way for your phone to talk to your desktop, even if they're behind firewalls, or like even if you're on a different network or whatever it is. And that came entirely from community feedback. So anyway, I'm trying to say like the community was super awesome, sort of helping me build and ship this thing. And of course, like recently we've sort of taken on, I want to expand. So ZecWallet as of right now is a desktop only product. And so we're planning to near future sort of expand the platforms that it will work on, right? So the next steps for ZecWallet are definitely to ship an iOS and an Android app. And that's why we did this React project, where we sort of moved the code base into this new React framework that is kind of portable across phones and desktops, so we can use the same code base everywhere. More features like faster scanning, stuff like that. So there's a ton of work remaining on ZecWallet. And for those of you listening, like I really encourage you to, like if you're interested in getting into this space, like Zcash couldn't be a better project to like start, right? Like the
I love
community is
hearing
super
that.
helpful. The electric coin company, all the experts there are like incredibly helpful to newcomers, helping them get started. The community is very supportive. Zcash Foundation is awesome. They're doing a lot to support developers. ZecWallet itself could use a lot of help, especially around like UI, or adding more, doing security audits and stuff like that. So if you're interested, just hit me up, and I'm sure we can find ways to sort of build cool new things together.
Awesome. Aditya, I really appreciate that run through that you gave. If anybody has questions, please share them in the chat. I have a few questions, but I'd like to start with kind of my personal story. So I started at Electric Coin Company in September of last year. The wallet team, which I agree, everything you said is true. They're amazing. They're brilliant. They were talking about a Zcash Lite wallet, and very excited about it. And I was like, okay, this will be my first experience with this. When I downloaded the product, I didn't realize it was only a command line interface. There was no GUI interface at all. And I was like, what did I get myself into? This is really over my head. And then I started using ZecWallet. So for somebody who is new to cryptocurrencies or newer to the space, maybe doesn't have as much of a technical background, ZecWallet products are really user-friendly, I would say. A couple of questions that I had for you is one, you mentioned that when you first started, you were a little intimidated about working on Zcash or maybe reaching out to the foundation and electric coin company. Can you give what advice would you have for people who want to start their own projects on Zcash or maybe want to apply to a grant? It's feedback that we hear a lot, that people are just intimidated or a little gun shy. So what could you say to those people to encourage them to build projects like what you've done?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing is to just get started, right? Like it's, I was also super intimidated at start because, Zcash, like zero knowledge proofs, it sounds so like
Heavy.
academic and mathematical and whatever. But like it's just a cryptocurrency, right? Like there's tons of like small things that can definitely that the space needs, and like we are all aware of shortcomings and limitations. And the biggest thing I'd sort of say here is that like the people couldn't be nicer to work with. Like really, like working with the Zcash Foundation is so easy. Like you can just send them an email and jump on a call, and they'll like basically handhold you through whatever needs to be done. And they'll tell you what projects, what areas need help. And Zcash Foundation, as everybody knows, like hands out grants too. So it's not like you have to sacrifice anything. You can sort of do this and earn build self-sustaining projects. And so my recommendation would be just start small, in areas where you can bring expertise. So even things like translating it to other languages, UI help, documentation, like those are really simple things that I'm sure a lot of people have tons of expertise in that the Zcash community as a whole could use right now. And and there's many different ways to get started. And so, start by starting, I guess, is like my sort of feedback, right?
Ooh, start by starting. That's the tweet. That's the bumper sticker for today's presentation. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one, maybe not everybody knows what Zcash Foundation grants are. So just as a refresher, if this is something you're not familiar with, the Zcash Foundation issues grants to community members or people building certain products. So you can apply if you go to Zcash Foundation and then hit the tab that says grants. So you can apply to grants that are already posted, or you can post your own and say, for X amount of ZEC, I will build XYZ. So that's a resource available to everybody. And this is something we only hope to see more of, especially by the end of the year. There'll be a major grants fund as part of the new development fund governance process with Zcash in general. And so if you're a developer, if you have a team, if you have an idea for a project that could benefit from the from Zcash's underlying protocol and technology, definitely raise your hand or reach out to me either in the forum or over email, and I'm happy to orient you and connect you with Sonia. She's awesome at the Zcash Foundation and just spearheading kind of your idea or help you get started. The last thing, Aditya, that I had a question for you. You had started talking about next steps for ZecWallet. Can you talk to us a little bit about, I saw online you had a ZecWallet web browser thing, and then like there was a new sleek black interface. So talk to us a little bit about what are the next steps for ZecWallet?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, like my biggest goal with ZecWallet, like what I'd like to see is for it to become like super easy to use and super easy to send and receive shielded transactions. Like it should not be harder than sending like just regular, Bitcoin or whatever, right? And so to that effort, like the Zcash Foundation sort of helped fund a grant 2 months ago that helped improve the ZecWallet UI. And with this new UI that you just saw, the dark one, it's written in this framework called React, which is super portable. And that means that now, for example, there is a web version of ZecWallet. If you go to web.zecwallet.co, you can get the full Zcash experience without having to download anything. You don't have to download the blockchain, and you don't even have to download a wallet. Like the wallet works inside the browser and it's fully featured. You can send and receive, fully shielded transactions, fully shielded memos, transparent, everything works in the browser. And you can even use the companion app so that, you can like in the next iteration of this, you'll be able to keep your keys, your private keys on the phone while having the wallet in the browser. So that's why it's super easy to use, but your private keys and your funds are safe on your phone, even if you're using sort of an untrusted browser, right? So a lot of the future work with ZecWallet is going to be around this, sort of making it much more easy to use and use to send and receive shielded transactions. So the web version is a step in that direction. We're going to have native iOS and Android apps that will do the same. We're going to have there's the Zcash Foundation recently funded a grant to support Ledger, the hardware wallet,
Yeah, I remember hearing about
um,
that.
with fully shielded transactions. So like ZecWallet will support that as well. The companion app where you can use your phone as sort of a poor man's hardware wallet, if you will, so that you can keep your keys safe while still using the browser or your desktop to send and receive transactions. So a lot of cool stuff coming down the road with ZecWallet.
Great. And Aditya, just in the last minute we have left before I move into kind of just general Zcash community updates, you are a community developer on Zcash. We'd love to see more people like you, more people doing their independent projects or projects on top of Zcash. So my question to you is, what would you like to see more of in Zcash, and what developer resources or what additional things do you think could help bring about a larger and more engaged developer community?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, one of the things that I think would really help is sort of a single sort of place where people who are interested in building stuff can scour for ideas, right? So there's obviously a lot of new things we can do. And right now it's sort of all over the place. You need to be involved in the community for a while to get a sense of like, hey, we could really use sort of, for example, better UI or better documentation, right? So like, it would be cool if there was sort of a list of, hey, here's the things that Zcash could use help with right now. So like, translations into native languages or better documentation for community products. And by the way, you can apply for grants for these and get paid for your time to do this. And here's a list of things that are available, or here's a list of things that need help with, and here's how you apply for a grant, and go. So
Yeah.
something like that would be, I think, really cool, as sort of just an entry point. Like I think the main challenge with Zcash right now, working on Zcash right now, is how do you get started. I think anything we can do to simplify getting started will help, because once you're inside, like the community couldn't be nicer or more helpful to work with.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know I'm an avid user of ZecWallet products, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what cool new stuff that you come up with.